Yes, so we are going to change things up a little bit. Chris Wise is a mentor of mine. I've learned so much from him, but also he's been through a lot and has a really interesting take on everything. So I'd like to introduce the Genius Network to Chris Wise with Generate Better Results by Raising Your LQ. And he's here to tell you what LQ is and why you can generate better results by living by those principles. Mr. Chris Wise.
Well, hey, it is great to be here. Today we're going to be in Christina, thank you, and Jeremy, thank you. I'm going to be talking about how love and raising your LQ or love quotient can actually enable you to generate better results. So if you're somebody that's looking to create better results and you want to do it in a way that actually feels good, then you're going to want to pay attention. So let's jump into it. So I'll share with you a little bit about my background. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I've sold 2 of my own businesses. I've coached and consulted with hundreds of CEOs and organizations around the world. And I discovered LQ and the power of love when I spent 19 months in federal prison. And if you're interested in hearing the full story, because there's quite an interesting story behind that, you can go on to lovequotient.org. And also, if you want to learn more about LQ, after I talk about today, that full story is on the lovequotient.org. You know, I like learning from people who I get inspired by people who have been successful and have a lot of wealth. And Jack Ma is the billionaire founder of Alibaba. And this is what Jack Ma says. He goes, if a person wants to be successful, you should have a high EQ. If you don't want to lose quickly, you should have a high IQ. But if you want to be respected, you should have a high LQ. So what is LQ? LQ is your ability to be kind and loving towards yourself and others. So let's talk about how LQ came about in this new intelligence paradigms. I'm sure many of you are familiar with IQ, mental intelligence. EQ, emotional intelligence, that came out in 1990, or at least the coin, emotional intelligence was coined in 1990 and became popular in 1995 with Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence. And LQ has really just become popular and started to get known here in the last couple of years. And so let's take a look at what the difference is between EQ and LQ, because if you're familiar with EQ, it's helpful to understand the distinctions between EQ and LQ. So one, EQ is a function of the mind and body being both physical and intellectual. LQ is a function of the heart. EQ allows you to recognize your emotions. LQ allows you to be with your emotions. EQ teaches you self-management so that you can, in essence, be in control of your emotions. LQ allows you to feel, release, and surrender into your emotions. LQ may encourage us to mask or hide our feelings. EQ brings about internal love and safety in our bodies, because when we feel safe in our bodies, we're able to deal with negative emotions as they come up and move more quickly through them, as opposed to avoiding them or escaping them or state changing out of them using positive love techniques. Here's another quote from Jack: the access to open mind is vulnerability. Vulnerability is accessed through an open heart. An open heart is accessed through raising your LQ. This was a study that came out recently in Science News, where they imaged the heart, and they found that through how not the neurons, but the makeup of the heart, there was actually a little brain within the heart. There's also studies, and I didn't include in the slide, but I don't know if you've heard them, where people had heart transplanted into other people and then they had like similar taste or similar memories. There's some very interesting things that have already been proven in science around the makeup of the heart. So let's get practical, right? So a lot of times people are like, what does love have to do with business? What does love have to do with making money? Well, one, just on a very fundamental level, we're human beings. And we need love. If you're a baby, you don't have love, you die. Physical touch is a form of love. And I also think one of the reasons I love this community, Coin Genius, is because blockchain and crypto, I think, is actually inherently a reflection of a greater amount of love that is emerging in our society through decentralization, through greater freedom, through better value creation. Those are principles of love. Love and consciousness expand. And I see that blockchain and crypto are expansions of our consciousness as human beings to create infrastructures that will allow for more effective commerce, business, and value creation and transaction, which is the very nature of love. So I think just inherently love is very fundamental to why we're all here. But let's actually get practical to how can love help us on a daily basis in raising your LQ. One of those ways is that it can help you improve your inner dialogue and overcoming negative inner dialogue. Did you know that, and this was a study that was done in 2019 around the imposter syndrome, 82% of entrepreneurs, both men and women, struggle with imposter syndrome on a regular or daily basis. So let's break that down. There's actually 4 P's of imposter syndrome. The first one is perfectionism. Perfectionism, beating yourself up for not finishing things fast enough, not being where you want to be, not being good enough. Some things of perfectionism. The other P is procrastination. A worrying 70% of entrepreneurs in this research admitted that this is their go-to stress response when imposter syndrome strikes. I think procrastination is perhaps the biggest trasher of brilliant business ideas. There's 2 other P's. One is paralysis. 53% of entrepreneur respondents in the research said that they regularly freeze on a project if it's triggering imposter syndrome. They avoid it completely until just before the deadline, when the adrenaline of the last minute rush pushes them through their fears. But pushing on through those fears affects our performance and can actually make things worse. The other P is people pleasing. This is 57% said they lacked clear boundaries with clients. 68% said they discounted their prices without being asked, which actually is a makeup of not charging what you're worth. You know, the four P's make it hard for your business to succeed, no matter how magnificent your marketing plan might be, because they get in the way of you taking great, big, scary, inspired actions that create breakthroughs, instead of leaving you stuck with the overwhelm that triggers burnout. Raising your LQ can also improve your relationship with data and metrics. I know there's a lot of investors on this call, people who are regularly trading crypto, or maybe perhaps even in the stock market. So fear and anxiety can come up, especially when things aren't going the way that you want them to be. So when raising your LQ or loving yourself more deeply helps you overcome the fear and anxiety that comes when things are not going the way you want them to, by helping you to be in reality with your business or investments. And here's what I mean by being in reality with: seeing and engaging and not turning away. And this is enabled because there's internal safety and courage to actually feel through these emotions that are coming up that love actually enables. So, and just to give you guys a direction where we're headed with all this, I'm giving you an overview of the territory and the different areas that raising your LQ and love can help with. And then at the end, I'm going to give you guys an actual experience of this through one of the most powerful LQ practices that I've ever discovered, and something that I do on a daily basis. Another thing that raising your LQ helps solve is prioritizing your physical well-being. Just being in front of a computer screen for long hours, the sitting that comes up from not prioritizing your physical self-care and bodily needs, not taking time to eat, drink enough water, stretch, stand, get up for a long walk. When you actually love yourself more, you actually begin to make these a priority. And all of this, as we're talking through this, you'll see that you may know a lot of these things, but having access to them can be challenging. And so when you love yourself more, you actually are like, oh, now I'm going to do that. It's really powerful. Here's a stat as part of improving your physical well-being. People who work 3 or more hours longer than a normal 7-hour day have a 60% higher risk of heart-related problems, such as death due to heart disease, non-fatal heart attacks, and angina. This was a study that was done in 2010. Raising your LQ helps you improve your mental well-being. This is related to the mental exhaustion and stress that comes from applying your intellect for long periods of time without breaks and from pushing yourself to keep going. In essence, workaholism. Raising your LQ helps you with your improves your mental well-being. There's a statistic that also came from this 2009 study that employees working 9 to 12-hour shifts compared with a traditional 8-hour shift show deterioration in cognitive performance, reasoning, and alertness. When we look at all of these add up to challenges to be effective at taking action and making decisions. Through raising your LQ and learning how to love yourself, it increases your clarity in decision-making, the inability and ineffectiveness or slowness to take action, which could be caused by all of the above reasons. So that's the challenge of this. Jack Ma says, if you have a different mindset, you will have a different outcome. So one of the things I like that this approach is different than perhaps, there's a million different things out there about how to make better decisions, how to be more effective at taking actions, how to create organizations that are effective at decision-making and taking actions. And generally speaking, most of the books and the thoughts or the workshops or whatever you might do is really it's centered in the mind and in a very linear process, step-by-step, A to B. And what I'm going to suggest to you is to actually to think about love and that it actually creates a better environment for your ability to take action. So love impacts the environment of your decisions and actions. And I'm going to give you 2 examples that I think that you may be familiar with that help you kind of see the impact that love can actually have on your decisions and actions. So one, feng shui. Have you ever been in an environment that's been feng shuied versus one that's not? You feel different, right? And is it because that chair is positioned this way or that thing is there? It's like, what is it? Why? But you just feel different in an environment. It impacts how you feel. Another, I think a great example is being in nature, right? When you're in nature, at least I do, I feel different. I feel more at peace. I feel more grounded, right? Well, is it because of that rock is there or that water there? Is it the tree plus the rock plus the water? No, it's the environment. It's the totality of the environment. And that's really how I want you to see what we're talking about here. How love, it's not like one thing that shifts it. It's the environment that love creates, the consistency of loving yourself that actually changes your environment, that actually enables you to take more effective actions and decisions. I like this quote by Jack Ma that says, raising our LQ gives us access to a whole new paradigm rooted in love, where things that may seemingly be at odds with our own objectives can actually help us grow and evolve. So what is your environment for decision and actions? Love impacts the environment of your decisions and actions. By default, most people are operating in an environment of fear, and unresolved subconscious pain for their decisions and actions. And so they got to create a powerful mindset. They got to go to the next, we need to do mindset work. Oh man, like we're going to talk about that in a moment, but a lot of people's way that they try to do things is through their mind. This is not about the mind. This is beyond the mind. Raising your LQ creates a healthy and inspiring environment for your decisions and actions. And I think this is a great analogy for what I think a lot of look, again, you got to have a powerful mindset, no doubt. But this is like the evolution, just like how crypto is the evolution of currency. LQ is the evolution of how we make decisions and actions. And so if you're just trying to improve your mindset, that's like trying to pave over a swamp, right? If you ever wonder, like, man, I keep working on this, I keep trying to have this powerful mindset, but this thing keeps happening. I'm sure every one of you on this call could have something like that in your life, that it keeps coming up, right? Well, there's stuff underneath it. There's stuff that's unresolved underneath it, and just keep trying to pave a mindset doesn't create it. And so then problems can happen. And so we're actually creating a better environment so that when we do have a powerful mindset, we're actually creating it from a solid foundation. So now I'm going to give you the principles for what this environment looks like, and then we're going to put it into action. So building the environment for powerful action and decisions through raising your love quotient. The first principle is that in order to love others, it is essential to love yourself first. You cannot give effectively, or at least in a healthy way, to others what you have not given to yourself. I think, there's in one LQ type, there are people that they're so committed to loving others or serving others or helping others, but they don't take care of themselves first. And so I don't see that as a healthy way. You want to start with loving yourself first, that your cup is full first, and then give from others from that place. Loving yourself is not a selfish act. Rather, it shows self-care. Loving all the parts of you, especially the dark parts, is critical. And that's the parts of shame. That's the parts, the dirty parts. That's the part that you don't want other people to know. That's the time you got arrested for whatever, that's the post that somebody did about you because they got pissed off online, and you try to push it down with SEO. Like, if there's stuff that is there underneath that you have shame about, those are parts of yourself that need more love. Loving yourself allows you to feel safe in your own body. Raising your LQ allows you to be fully present with and experience your emotions. The safer you feel in your body, the safer you feel to be with difficult emotions such as fear and sadness. Here's why so much of that personal development stuff, the mindset stuff, the state change is so, people like it so much, because it doesn't feel, when you don't feel safe in your body, it's hard to be with fear and sadness and loneliness and boredom. It's like, no, these emotions are getting in the way from me going out and to accomplish, from me getting this done, from me closing the next deal, from me effectively making this trade. And so I got to push it down, shift my mindset, and keep moving on. Well, that leads to burnout. That leads to heart attacks. It leads to all the stuff that we had talked about before. You're paving over a swamp. EQ allows you to recognize your emotions. You got to be able to recognize them. LQ allows you to actually be with your emotions. And when you're able to be with your emotions, you're like, fuck, I'm feeling fear. Like, this doesn't feel good. I don't like it. I'm feeling it. Okay, now I'm taking action. The heart of LQ is your relationship with your basic self, also known as your inner child. Now, these are psychological terms, terms from psychology. And I have found it helpful to use these terms in recognizing these different parts of self, so that I really know what part of myself I'm loving. Because a lot of times when I talk about raising your LQ and loving yourself more, people are like, oh, I already love myself, right? If that's your response when I talk about loving yourself more, that's not the part of self I'm talking about. That part of yourself is your ego. most people's ego don't need more love, right? Most people, like, they're like, I feel good about myself. I like myself. When I look in the mirror, that's what I like. No, no, no. That's not the part of self that we're talking about here. There's a part of ourselves that's underneath all of that. It's our inner child. And all of you have an inner child. And it's that the innocence within. It's the part of ourselves that we may have lost touch with as we were growing up. It's the part of ourselves that had wounding and pain from our parents or lack thereof, from, you know, not being successful with girls in high school and getting turned down, and whatever. That was for me. We all have stuff from our past that we just have wounding around, and that wounding can actually be healed. And so I want to give you guys an experience of that right now. I'm going to stop my screen sharing button. Okay, I'm going to be right here with you guys. And I welcome, if anybody is listening and has the ability to turn on your video, if you want to turn on your video, it makes me feel like there's people here with me. And I also welcome your guys' comments and thoughts as we go through this. And so the first really key in this is being able to get in touch with this part of ourselves. And that can be hard, right? Getting access to this inner child. So if you're not able to do it, first off, if you're like, this is crazy, that's okay, right? You don't have to get it. If you're interested in perhaps exploring something new that you may never have, come on this journey with me. As we go through this, if you're not able to connect with this part of yourself, that's okay, it takes time. If you've had distinctions in the past, or you've done some personal growth or development, or you've done some inner child work, and you already understand this or done this, awesome, then you will be able to do this more easily. So wherever you're at, it's perfectly okay. One of the ways in actually getting in touch with this part of ourselves is to, if you were to imagine holding yourself as a little baby, and you see yourself there in your arms, and you're looking down, just imagine that. And you may feel something emerge in this area, right? When typically this heart-related work or the inner child work is typically felt in this part of the body. Another way to do it, and this is what I did. I started doing inner child work in my mid-20s. I got a picture of myself that's me as a 5-year-old boy. Got a picture, like I did this workshop, and they're like, get a picture of yourself as a kid to help connect with that part of myself. And so I did, and I keep this on my desk, right? So I keep my little boy in front of me. You know what we're doing here actually is we're creating a relationship with our inner child. Just like if you have kids, you create a relationship with your kids. If you don't have kids, you create relationships with people. This is something, it's not a one-time thing. It's not a quick fix. Like, you deserve more love, not less. You deserve more love, not less. And this is a way to give it to yourself in a healthy way that actually begins to open up so many doors and heal things inside of you. And so it's a relationship. It's a relationship that gets developed over time. It gets stronger and stronger. And eventually you get to the place where like, oh, I'm so connected with this part of me, right? So we're just opening the door here. So I just, guys, all I want to just take a moment. If you want to put your hand on your heart, that might help. You can close your eyes. I think closing your eyes will help. I may have my eyes open just so I can see here. I may not, but I'd encourage you to close your eyes, hand on heart, and just really feel in to you. And if you want to imagine holding yourself as a little baby, or imagine yourself at 5 to 10 years old. Let's take a couple deep breaths together just to kind of center in. We've been all day in front of a computer. Let's breathe in. And I'm going to invite you to repeat after me. And I'm going to love on my inner child, and you can love on your inner child. And I encourage you to say it out loud if you'd like, or you can say it silently if you want. You can just repeat after me. I love you. I love you. And what we're doing right now, this is not affirmations. We're actually telling our inner child that we love them, just like you would your own child. I love you. I love you so much. I love you. And then here's a question that you can ask yourself. What do you need from me right now? And whether you got an answer on that or you didn't, it's okay. Ultimately, what our inner child wants is just our own loving attention. So the very fact that you took some time to connect with that aspect of self, to give it some love, that's really all we want. So I don't know how tight we are with time today, but I'll give you a few things and then we can have questions, or I'm not sure if there's other comments.
You have 3 minutes left, and then we have the next.
Okay. So I will give you guys if you want to learn more about LQ and raising your LQ. By the way, what we just did here, I encourage you to do it every day. It's just part of exercising or meditation or whatever you do. You can build it in. You can do it anytime, anywhere. Give yourself my love yous. If you want to learn more, you can go to the lovequotient.org, or if you just Google LQ, it'll come up in Google results.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool. So, I try to take a line out of your book in terms of just getting in touch with your emotions. And like you say, right, this applies to a lot of different things, whether it's business or trading. Kyle Rea hit on this a little bit earlier, which is, being in touch with your emotions helps you to almost take the emotion out of things like trading, right? Because in my worst trades that I've ever made in crypto, it's because my emotions got the best of me. Right. So these exercises are helpful to be able to help control to an extent your emotions. Everybody's different. Some people wear their heart on their sleeves. Some people, are a little bit more reserved and hold it back, put it into a little box and, shelve it for a little while. I'm not that person. Sometimes just, in crypto, there's so much volatility in the space that it's very easy that even if you have a plan going into it, to really just abandon that plan because you see something on a chart just shooting up over the course of a minute, and it just gets you to second guess your original decision. And that's the hardest thing as a trader, and that's why we try to automate as much as we can here at Coin Genius, and why I have an army of people in our team that are much smarter than I am to help navigate those rough waters. And this is definitely helpful as well from an emotional and psychological standpoint. So thank you so much. Really important stuff, and really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris.